Greetings, Audio Avengers. Welcome to the Marvelous TV Club, your headquarters for insightful and entertaining discussions of the latest episode of Marvel television. We're 1/3 of the way into Moon Knight. We've lost the scarab and we woke up hungover in Cairo. Last week on Storycast, we discussed how Moon Knight not only explores questions of identity, but questions what actually constitutes or defines identity. This week, our Charactercast team has assembled to discuss some of those identities in particular, namely Steven, Mark, Layla, Arthur, Khonshu, and Ammit. Sadly, the museum HR guy did not make the cut. To talk about all of this, we'll be playing a fun game of Would You Rather, asking the question, compelling or not, and discussing some big picture questions about our characters. I'm your multi-hyphenate host, producer, editor, social media maven, and more, Mark Folletti, and as always, on Charactercast, I am joined by the MCU's finest judges of character. First, Kristine Kippins. Hi, Kristine.
Hey, Mark.
And second to none, Jesse Taylor. What's up, man?
How's it going, folks? It's good to see both of you.
Yeah, it's great to see you too.
I missed us.
I know. It's always better when Marvel has something on and gives us a chance to hop on video. But we also, we do not limit ourselves to talking only on this podcast. We did have a text thread this morning. And on that text thread, I was bragging about my call from last week on Storycast that the modified modern Moon Knight suit would be Stephen Grant's getup. And I was right. But I was also not really joking when I said that the Theorycaster version of Mark that was going on about that, the guy who sees Mephisto around every corner, is my version of Marc Spector, right? It's the voice in my head that is always trying to take over my body. It's talking to me through the mirror. It's shouting in the background when I'm just trying to get something out of my bag. So before we get into all of this, I have to know, who is your Marc Spector, Kristine?
My Marc Spector works at Google or Facebook making bank. Like, they're just in the private sector. They're not doing any of this public policy bullshit. They're working for the man. They are making money. They are just rolling in it. They've just given their soul over to the dollar. And listen, I started out that way. So like, it's not like a very, very distant road for me to trek. Marc Spector is literally my past. So wouldn't be that difficult for me to turn back. I mean, honestly, in my old age, I'm like, do I want to keep doing this do-gooder shit? Do I really want to do that? Or do I just want to make money? The money sounds so good right about now.
Yeah, then you can donate to other people doing the good shit.
Isn't that like the whole theory?
I mean, that's
right?
the
just
dream.
Robin Hood that shit.
Yeah. And I mean, everyone goes to law school and says, I'm going to go into public interest. Then we don't. Then maybe we make it back one day. But we all go in with the purest of intentions.
Yeah, fuck these intentions. I'm so over it.
No, I look forward to. I can't believe I'm going to have both of you to talk to about She-Hulk when we get into all that. It's going to be super wild. Jesse, what about you? I need to know about your Marc Spector before we go.
So my Marc Spector is a meathead gym owner.
Nice.
Oh man.
Probably some like kind of like CrossFit style, super dangerous kind of activity. Not as good as he thinks he is, but super dedicated to it. And also not very progressive in terms of anything. Maybe was at the insurrection on January 6th. Who knows?
Oh my God.
Like, look, I'm going dark here. I'm just going. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope you don't have someone who would be an insurrectionist like in the mirror talking to you that often, Jesse, or I feel like we're going to hand you that pamphlet that Stephen Grant got.
Well, I'm also swayed. We had a trucker convoy outside of work today. Two trucks.
That's it? That's all you had?
That's it. That's all that's left, I guess.
Oh, we had a very, very long stint with the truckers here in DC. They were not welcome at all. But, you know, in true DC fashion, folks just like got on bicycles and pulled up in front of them and started pedaling at like a mile an hour and drove them absolutely nuts.
My heroes.
So welcome to DC, motherfuckers.
We didn't have any truckers in Philly that I know of. I can't decide why that is. If Columbus gets them, why don't we? But I'm not complaining. I don't want any fucking trucker convoys in my town. I just can't believe 2 constitutes a convoy. It's more like a dollop or something. I don't know what it is. What's a 2 truck event? 2 guys, 2 buddies. I don't know. Let's stop talking about the freaking truckers though, and get into some Moon Knight. We won't let the bad guys win, even though some of the bad guys did pretty well in this episode. But we're gonna start, like I said, with a game of Would You Rather. Jesse, I want to start with you. I have this question for you. Factoring in personality, past, and interests, and whatever else you want to factor in, I guess. Would you rather be Stephen Grant or Marc Spector?
So this is a hard one because taking in personality, past, and interests, I probably was Stephen Grant for a lot of my 20s. Like an insomniac retail worker who always dreamt a little bit bigger and had shitty bosses. Like so much about the first episode felt like revisiting my 20s.
Wow.
Oh, no.
I still think on balance, I'd rather be Steven, given what we've seen so far, than Mark, especially because Mark is in some shit so deep that his brain split off a personality to deal with it. That's how I'm reading the show so far. And in terms of living life, I mean, at least, from what we've seen so far, Steven got to be the dominant personality for quite some time. And that does speak to some strength that he had in order to be able to keep Mark in that body until he was needed.
We have one guy who's a total badass, but maybe assassinated some archaeologists. Like, that doesn't feel like a great place to be. But at the same time, Stephen is a fairly pathetic fellow, right? I mean, I don't think Stephen Grant is in his 20s. I think he's no. Oscar Isaac can play almost any age, but probably not that age.
Let's give him TV like 30s. Because how old is Oscar Isaac?
I mean,
can we call him by his proper name?
Daddy?
Daddy?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's just so, no, we cannot. You can. I cannot. I'm not capable.
Why not? He said he doesn't mind. It's okay. You can call him Daddy, Mark.
Yeah, it's we're definitely not at that relationship. I guess what I would say to that is I've never called anyone that. So it's my first won't probably be Oscar Isaac unless he's in the room with me. Then,
but what a first!
Yeah, what a first! Yeah, but he'd have to be actually in the room with me. I think to sort of
break that seal. Just break that seal, Mark.
Try that on for size.
Just do it. Try it. Just once. Call him Daddy.
Yeah, Kristine, any compelling reason why someone should be Marc Spector instead of Stephen Grant, or do you agree with that?
Listen, all I know is that I'm glad you asked Jesse this question and not me, because this question is fucking impossible. Because Mark is fighting all the time. He's in a deal with a god to protect the woman he loves. The same woman wants to fucking divorce him. He's like, he seems to be in it for a lifetime of servitude. And then with Steven, you've got no sex, no friends, no confidence, no cheese. He's a fucking vegan.
Yeah.
And mom doesn't want to answer his calls if she's even alive.
Yeah.
I think both of these choices absolutely suck. But I would say that we've seen 2 episodes with Steven at the wheel. We've really yet to see Mark and what he does. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I would actually love to revisit this question after we've seen Mark for a while.
And I mean, he does have a wife, and she seems pretty cool. So he must not be the worst person in the world. And again, if you have to choose the sort of life of a monk versus having this like cool wife. And while you said she wants to divorce him, I mean, she said he wanted to divorce her.
Oh,
she
that's
didn't
right.
Totally seem into that, and was clearly still very worried about him and is into him, and that's why she's been looking for him.
But your entire life is indentured servitude, and the focus, as far as we can tell, is doing what you need to do so that the ancient Egyptian god that has enslaved you doesn't turn around and enslave your wife.
Right.
Ooh, strong point.
Sucks.
Yeah.
Totally sucks. But here's the thing, though. If he wants to divorce her, and she's not that into it, why travel across the pond with the divorce papers and be like, sign it, bitch? She's over it too. She's ready.
We'll see. I don't know. I saw some sparks there. Maybe that's just because it's your boy Oscar and he has sparks with everybody. But I don't know. She still seemed to have some affection for him. But again, I'm really curious if she was also involved in this, potential murdering of bad guys, or whether they were set up for that. I mean, just because in the comics he started out as a bad guy doesn't have any bearing on whether this version of Marc Spector started out as a bad guy. All right. So Stephen Grant is your final answer, Jesse?
After 2 episodes, Stephen Grant, but I will say it's with that caveat. We don't know much about Mark yet, except that his life seems to be terrible and locked in Stephen's head.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's the right answer, barring more information. So let's see, and like Kristine said, we can revisit.
But Mark eats meat and cheese.
He does.
Can we just remember that?
Yeah.
And has really good superpowers, which, is not something to dismiss. It would be fun to be able to suit up like that. Although, I don't know. We'll talk more about the suits in a bit. Kristine, I want to ask you a different would you rather that is a little more abstract, but I think really gets at the heart of some of the stuff we've talked about before in regards to your approach to justice and vengeance in the world. So let's assume that Ammit's judgments are very, very, very effective and accurate. Let's say, for example, 99.2% accurate. Maybe not perfect, but very, very close as to determining who will definitely do great evil in the world now, or has done it, or will do it. Would you rather, A, follow Ammit and prevent those evils in advance, potentially through child murder on the occasional moment, or would you rather follow Khonshu and avenge those wrongs, but never be able to prevent them?
So, Mark, you have an assumption as to which way I'm going to go. So I would like you to declare where you think I'm going to go.
I think you will choose Khonshu, but I just think that there might be part of you that if you had that number, if you knew that this was really super effective and could prevent those evils in advance, I just think you might be more comfortable than most people I know, considering that path. Am I even closer? You just hell no, I would never.
Mark, I exist on this podcast to constantly prove you wrong.
Great.
I am 100% Team Khonshu. Are you kidding? I mean, you were right, but then you were no. You should have just gone with your first instinct. I am 100% Team Khonshu. First of all, he's a smartass. So, I love my own people. Mm-hmm. So there's that. But secondly, I'm also Team Loki. We need a little chaos in our lives. We need the bad, or else our life is just going to be fucking boring. Not to mention, you need all the negative things in life to appreciate the good, even the mundane. Do y'all remember what it was like having Trump as president?
I think so.
Do y'all remember?
Yeah, a little bit.
Do y'all remember that time? Okay. Now, do you remember the sheer joy and relief that you felt when the election was finally called for Joe Biden?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I remember exactly where I was.
It is only in a world where you had to deal with 4 years of a President Trump that you would shed tears of joy to welcome in a President Joe Byron. Okay? That is the only scenario. Did you just say Joe Byron? Joe Byron. Joe Byron. Okay? That's the only world in which that happens. That the relief and the crying and the happiness and the running down 16th Street Northwest to the White House and be na 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 na. Just the elation from that day, you don't get that without the preceding 4 years of sheer evilness. You know what I mean? But what kind of boring ass world is Ammit trying to create? Would there be hierarchies of goodness? Like once all the evil is eradicated, would the less good then be seen as evil? Like if there's peace in the world and there's literally no evil, but Ammit sees that you might kill a fly one day. Does that mean you're killed now? And like you said, it's like 99.2% accurate, right? For me, that 0.8% is enough to be like, no, we can't do it. Because it's ending life before it really even has a chance to begin. I'm with Steven. If you're killing someone before they commit an act, you're killing an innocent person. I can't trust you. Why? Just because you're a fucking goddess? Khonshu is clearly a manipulative asshole. Who's to say Ammit is any better? Who's to say that she would actually spare the people who could create a utopia? I don't have enough proof here.
So you're out on the baby Hitler thing, right? Or baby Trump or baby Putin or anything, right? You couldn't go back. If you could have seen it and you knew it, you would still be like, it's, we can't have the V-Day parades without, some light, destruction of all of Europe.
Let me tell you guys, like I actually lost a friend a few weeks ago. He had a cardiac event. And he died at 43 years old, which is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. And it's such a robbery for all of us. But I went to his wake and I saw people I haven't seen, some of them since elementary school and others since high school and college. And we celebrated his life. And that's what I'm remembering. Like I smile now thinking about him because of the stories that we were able to tell, like that sorrow, which can be seen as like a bit of evil in this world, right? Like brought us together and made us happy. We laughed and told stories and jokes and all of that stuff. Like you need sorrow and misery and the bad times in order to actually appreciate the good. So me and Ammit, we ain't getting along because Ammit would not allow me to have joy. It would just be life. It would just be this homeostasis, this like, there are no ups and downs. It's just flat.
And you're right about the point that like, where does it stop? One thing that we have not heard from Arthur Harrow is what constitutes, great evil. And is that the only line that gets drawn? And to your point, when suddenly every murderer is gone, is every thief going to be gone? If every thief is gone, is everyone who thinks a bad thought gone? If everyone who thinks a bad thought is gone, or do you even have, who do you even have left? Do you just have it? And, it's not a great look to summon demon jackals from the inside the earth. Like if you want to project a wholesome image, I don't think that's good branding.
Yeah, no shit.
And I will say, we've met Khonshu, and we know that Khonshu is not quite stable, not quite honest, not quite the best judge overall. We haven't met Ammit yet, but I'm going to assume that Ammit has many of these same flaws. And like you said, we don't know what great evil is. We know during the first episode that Arthur ends up killing who seemed like a perfectly nice old lady. Like she didn't do anything to anybody. She probably baked a mincemeat pie, walked over to the town square with like, I'm going to get judged today and I'll be in the cult. It'll be great. And she's dead now. And who knows what she did or why she did it. And that was, again, in the future. Who knows? And nobody knows what the criteria was for taking her life. And so if you're in this cult, it's also the issue of it's Ammit giving one person really the power over this and everybody else kind of trusting that this vessel isn't abusing his power. And so there's no proof, there's no evidence, there's nothing you can show. You just have to trust and hope that it never turns against you. And I will tell you, I've read enough about cults. If this cult goes on long enough, it's going to turn against everyone in the cult. And it might be that you didn't wear the right glass-filled slippers that day. It might be that you ate something you shouldn't have eaten. Or it might just be that he considers you a threat. but like you're probably gonna die either in, a big bonfire when he decides that the cult needs to be reset and reborn, or because you've done something to piss off Ammit or piss off Arthur. I'm not getting involved in that. That's not my thing. I would much rather have, in terms of the boss, I'd rather have the bad boss who will sit there and argue with me and let me push back and provide me some evidence for why I'm doing the things I'm supposed to be doing, as opposed to the one who's just like, trust me, like these old people and these babies just need to die.
Yeah, no, strong arguments, especially around the cult-like behavior. If Twitter has taught me anything, it's that when you try to behave perfectly at all times or else, it's a tough environment to sort of be a happy or productive person in. But I don't know. I just think there's a little more merit than the show might be given credit to, in terms of like, if you were going to make like a basic utilitarian argument, for example, around some of these things. And if you could, so let's say, again, let's try to present the reasonable Ammit case, right? That like, we're limiting it to great evil only. So like, I don't know why that old lady, I mean, it's a tough one to walk, but maybe she refuses to quit driving when she knows that she should, and she like runs over a horde of school kids or something, right? Like, we truly don't know. But let's say that that's the case. Like, I just think that, I think more people than we would like to admit, let me put it this way, would be open to the argument that we could take care of the great evil. Again, I'm not signing up for that cult, but I can see why some people, especially in the world that we live in, where things feel like they're spiraling out of control, that might be a more compelling argument than we think. That Jim Jones, Amanda was comparing him to Jim Jones when we were watching it over dinner before we recorded. And, those ideas of like retreating, building a new world, starting fresh, something simpler, people telling you what to do, what's good and what's not. I think that compared to the overwhelming world that we live in now, a lot of people would be drawn to that. It's a scary thought.
There's an appeal to being on the right side of history and to being on the right side of that judgment. And as long as you can maintain that right side of things as opposed to the wrong side of things, it seems like a pretty good place to be. That cult seems pretty, congenial.
Amazing warehouse like that. What those lofted ceilings are just to die for. So
and the Nazis were super fashionable. I mean, their coats and their uniforms.
Right. But you're the one who's letting Nazis happen with you and your Khonshu. I'm the one who's trying to take them out in the first place. You know what I'm saying?
I am, but then I bombed the shit out of them.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And but listen, all of their kids and, innocent people.
But like, I would not have been appeasing Hitler, first of all.
Well, that's true.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair. I'm excited to meet Ammit as a character. We talked about Khonshu being this unreliable weirdo. I really do hope we get to see her. I mean, I'm assuming the resurrection will get somewhere down the line productive, but.
So boys, I have a would you rather. Okay. Right. Let's step into Marvel After Dark for a second. You know me. Like, Oscar Isaac is here. I'm a thirsty ass motherfucker. I'm going to be asking some very thirsty questions from here on out, so just be forewarned. Okay, so, boys, would you rather bone Marc Spector or bone Stephen Grant? And why?
So, I don't even know that there's really a choice, because I don't know that it's even possible to bone Stephen. Like, he gets nervous, he gets anxious, he runs away. Let's say it's really good and he falls asleep. Well, then he's just going to wake up and be Mark anyway. So why not just cut to the chase? Like, and skip the appetizer, get to the entree.
Yeah, it comes down to kind of where I'm at in my life, I think, right? Sometimes I've been in a place where I know how I want it to be. And if anything, I'm looking for maybe a partner who's looking to be, molded in the image of those things and is willing to go on the journey that I would like to take them on. Then I feel like Stephen Grant would be a very willing supplicant. We could definitely play some Dom sub games that would work out just great. But if I'm ever looking for someone to expand my horizons and take me on a ride, I mean, look, Marc Spector is so good that, again, I don't think Layla's been able to give him up. Even when she thought he might be dead, she's still like, maybe we can at least have some breakup sex. I brought these papers.
You think it's the D? You think it's the D that
she could have just faxed him, but she's rolling in with those papers, hoping there's just one more ride. So I do agree that, like, if in a vacuum, it's probably Marc Spector. I'm just saying sometimes when you know what you want, it's helpful to have someone who's looking to you to take the lead. And I'm sure Steven would go wherever I wanted to lead him.
That's what I'm saying. You have Oscar Isaac chained to a bed.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, restraints are already in place.
Super simple.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. And he'd be so generous because he'd be so fucking grateful. You know what I mean? It'd just be like, it'd be just exactly what you said, Mark. You'd be able to shape him and mold him into whatever the hell it is that you want.
But we also know from the first episode, he had a date on Friday and showed up on Sunday.
That's Mark's fault.
Yeah, that's Mark's fault. Yeah.
Mark fucked that shit up.
But
and that wasn't his date.
But I will say, if that happens, like let's say we're talking about the status quo of the first 2 episodes, you know, you've got your willing supplicant, you've got your human Plato who's on his way over, you're on his way over to his place. And it's like you texted him, asked him if he was up. He's up because he's always up. Then you go over and he's not there. And he's not there for 2 days. Is that what you want?
Listen, I didn't say, would you rather be in a relationship with Marc Spector?
But I'm talking about pure booty call.
Who are you
I'm talking
getting
about
it on with?
No, right. A booty call who's gone because the other one took them to Austria or Switzerland without. It would be a
True.
downer. Would be a downer because you're right. You don't get Stephen Grant without the occasional disappearing act. So it's a great.
But that's going to be with either one of them.
It's true.
Like you're in Egypt with Mark, and then next thing you know, Stephen wakes up and he has to hightail it back to London.
But that's an argument for it being Mark then, because the only reason you'd put up with that is because you're looking for the dom and not the sub, and so you'd be willing to sort of be jerked around as part of that game or something. I don't know. It's not my favorite way for things to go. So.
I love how not easy this question was.
Yeah, this is. There's, I think I think there's a lot to recommend and also definitely not recommend both guys. All right. That was Would You Rather. But before we move on, guys, I got to do my sponsor read. Now, for those of you who listen to Storycast, you might recall that I mentioned my newest project, a brick and mortar retail store here in Philly called Latchkey. What is it? Well, I call it a love letter to the 80s and 90s. We are slated to do a preview opening of our brick and mortar later this month, but we are also going to ramp up the website soon with all kinds of goodies. We definitely have a ton of great vinyl records, loads of vinyl records, but we are also going into collectibles. Jesse, I know you're a 90s X-Men cartoon guy. We're going to have some awesome Gambit and Storm figurines from that era. We've also got some awesome glassware, like this cool Megatron glass I really like. We have fun Star Wars stuff. We have this Marvel puzzle that I really dig. We got a ton of that stuff. So all of that is coming together. So if you want to support the MTVC, the best way to do that is to follow Latchkey on Instagram. That's at Shop Latchkey, S-H-O-P, Latchkey. Stay on top of the news there, and you will be the first to know when all this cool new merch is online. And if any of it tickles your fancy, then go forth and grab it and let me know what you think about the site. You can email me at Marc, M-A-R-C, at shoplatchkey.com with any of your thoughts as this comes together. All right, let's move into section 2, gang. Compelling or not. Kristine, on Storycast, Maeve noted the lack of female characters with any depth whatsoever in the premiere. We did meet Layla in this episode. Based on what we have seen so far, is she a compelling character?
First of all, for the record, I just want to say, fuck Donna. Donna could die in the most painful, miserable way possible, and I'd be okay with that.
That sounds like Ammit talking. Are you sure? What are we talking about here?
Fuck Donna. No, she has exacted pain upon the precious Steven. I judge her based on her actions, and fuck that bitch. So, Khonshu all the way. Listen, if Ammit was there, we would have never seen Donna. So there's that. But fuck Donna. Just wanted to put that on the record. in terms of whether or not Layla is compelling, she is, for me, in a sense, because she has sparked so many questions in my head now that she's come in. Like, how has she been married to Mark and she's never met Steven before? Like, never by accident come across Steven. Now that we know of her, did Mark set up that date with the lady from the museum for Steven or for himself? I'm assuming that, like, since it was at a steakhouse, it was for himself. But, like, if he's really still loving on his wife, like, why are you setting up this date? Like, are you trying to be a good wingman and just, like, give Steven an alley-oop here? Like, but why a steakhouse for a vegan? And there's so many fucking questions. Like, and is she more than a wife? Because Mark was very quick to follow her order when she was like, get it out of here. Like, they're partners in some sense beyond husband and wife.
Yes.
They're going their, quote, adventures together. So, like, something is up with her. I've got a lot of questions. Khonshu is digging on her. Why? What has she done in her past to make her a candidate to be a good avatar? And where'd she learn how to fight? All of these questions I have. So I find her intriguing. Is she compelling? I mean, I don't know. We've met her for like 5 minutes. She's not that deep yet.
The French poetry didn't do it for you?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was so hot though when
that
Daddy
was pretty
started
good.
doing
That
it
was
too.
that was pretty good.
Oh my God. I just love that.
And that's a point in Stephen Grant's favor because, like, he had that French poetry down pat. So,
yeah.
He did. But did he have it because of Mark?
Yeah.
Like, did Mark lead him to that?
Yeah. But I mean, there is something that is enticing, compelling, whatever you want to use about it. But that two different versions of this man have some interest in her. Because, again, you saw a lot of Steven's interests were shaped around things she liked, which meant that even as Mark is hiding out in Steven or whatever's going on with him, Steven is still shaping his life around the precious, beautiful, wonderful Layla, whoever she is and whatever she means.
And he would never divorce her,
Mm-mm.
which I thought was a very sweet line.
It's a very bit quick, though.
Yeah.
Let's say, I think I need more than 5 minutes with whoever in the world, before I would definitely drop that line. Because who knows how terrible they would be to you, and that's kind of weird and creepy. But intriguing more than compelling. Can I just say the weirdest Layla moment was her sitting on the scooter, just like watching Arthur Harrow pick up the scarab? Like, if she's this badass, which, as you noted, she seems to be, and just fought that dude and jumped on the roof, no problem, and did all that other stuff. It's like, are you packing a weapon of some kind? Would you like to try and, I don't know, shoot Arthur Harrow? And just sitting there on the scooter, kind of taking it all in was a weird beat.
And watching him kill that man.
Oh, yeah.
Without the Cain judgment, like, didn't do any of that.
That's exactly it. I want to talk about that more later.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's also not a great point in Ammit's favor. All right, look, Jesse, in this episode, we did learn more about the aforementioned Arthur, ex-fist of Khonshu, praiser of tomatoes. Is he a compelling villain so far?
I love a good cult leader. Like, I'll just be honest. Even if I don't like the cult, I still find them to be fascinating figures. I like him because he's structured just like a good cult leader should be structured. We know from the very first time we meet him that he does something to himself every day in order to ensure that he is in constant pain. So there's something about the depth of his devotion, the depth of his belief that leads him to do this. But I also do not trust him. And I don't know what's true about Ammit or not. I don't know if Ammit is even involved at all. Ammit could be what he has come up with to attempt to gain power. It could be him on his own. It could be a different Egyptian god he's working with. It could be Ammit, but he's a threat to her or something. I don't know what's going on there, but I find it very interesting and I do want to know more. I also love his structure as a cult leader in that he is building this community. And it actually took me back in a lot of ways to Falcon and Winter Soldier, where we also had that post-snap community that built up, but we never got a real sense of the community except as like a group of people who are going to do things in furtherance of the plot. Whereas here we're really living in it and it's building a character, it's building a theme in the show. And so the fact that he's gotten enough people to believe in him and to believe in this sense of justice and to build something where these people are working together in furtherance of whatever the ultimate goal is, I do think he's compelling. I really am interested to see where this goes and also to see what the actual end game is. Because it feels like there is something much more deeply personal about what he's doing than serving Ammit. And I don't doubt that he will drop Ammit if he gets a chance to either exact his revenge or to follow through with whatever his ultimate goal is.
I'm so glad that you brought up Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which was like so focused on post-snap society that sometimes I wonder, like, was he inspired by Thanos? Because like he's being a little bit more exacting than Thanos. You know, Thanos said, I'm doing it dispassionately. It's going to be random and all of that. But, you know, Arthur's over here like, no, the wicked must be eradicated. And that is going to be utopia. Like, maybe Arthur was around for those 5 years and he saw what the world was like with half of it cleaved and gone away. And maybe that was a little bit of a hint of utopia for him and everybody's back. And now he's like, you know what would be better if we just got rid of all the wicked people. So I'm down for Ammit and her version of justice. So Thanos was kind of running in my mind a little bit during this episode. But I gotta say, like, the moment where I was like, okay, Arthur, I'm fucking with you. Like, I like you. Was when he started anticipating everything that Khonshu was saying. Like, I fell out. Like, I had to smile and I was like, I like this dude. Like, okay, he's a cult leader. He's gonna be evil. You know, I love a good villain every now and again, but like, I like this dude now. He knows that asshole to his core. Knows all of his bullshit. Like, I love a person who can smell the bullshit from a mile away. So for me, that solidified him in my mind as somebody that I'm into. He's adding a little bit of spice. But I do want to talk about that moment with the fucking scarab because he's not so pure to his mission.
Yeah.
I didn't see the scales move on that. He was like, oh,
Yeah.
you saw this scarab and I wish you could be in the world that we're about to build. Bullshit. No, you don't. Or else it'd be like Mark said. Like, if you don't want to do what it is that you say you don't want to do, don't fucking do it. Let the man see the world you're trying to build. What did he do? He don't know nothing about the scarab. Nobody knows about this shit. He picked up a gold beetle. That's all he knows.
Yeah, no, and it's so true because it's like, right, all these kind of leaders, especially these moral leaders, these fundamentalist type leaders tend to be do as I say, not as I do. Arthur is breaking his own code, like you're saying. He's just killing this guy for his own ends because it's simpler. It just ties off the loose end, and then he expects everybody else to be judged on this absurd scale, but he himself gets to get away with it. It's the essence of essentially moral fascism.
Yeah, and I mean, every cult leader does this. Like, no matter how many rules they lay down, no matter how much they insist that somebody follow it in order to be in the community and not excommunicated or punished, every cult leader ends up deciding that the mission allows them or affords them special rules that don't apply to anybody else. That's why, you have cults that take money and the cult leader ends up getting all the money. Or you have cults that require marriage or sexual acts, and the cult leader ends up getting to marry more people or ends up demanding more sexual acts than others. They get to eat the food that nobody else gets to eat because the spirit or the ethos or whatever that guides the cult says, I get special things because I'm special. You don't because you're not. And it's fully in line with every cult and how every cult ends up falling apart or ends up blowing up and getting larger. As you bring in more people and as the rules have to be expanded and enforced more and more, the leader has to break those rules in order to maintain their position and maintain superiority. Because guess what? If everyone around you is starving and sacrificing and weak, you got to stay strong somehow if you got to maintain your control over them.
Why do you think he puts the glass in the shoes? It was the opening shot of the entire series. What is the purpose of that? Does anyone have a theory?
I mean, if he was a Christian, it'd be so much easier to explain it, but he's not.
What's the answer there?
So like self-flagellation and whatnot, if you bring pain, you're suffering as Christ suffered for you, right?
Gotcha.
So it's supposed to be something that's humbling and brings you closer to Christ and reminding you that he died for your sins and therefore like try to be as less sinful as possible. But since he's not Christian, it's I don't know. I don't remember any part of talking about ancient Egypt where that type of self-mutilation and whatnot was seen as something as part of the divine or worshiping the divine or anything like that.
Yeah. And I don't think of it as self-mutilation. I think of it more as proof of purity because that's the entirety of what he's focused on, the purity of people's spirits, whether or not they possess great evil. And to the extent he's ever going to veer from his path in service of Ammit, I view the glass almost as proof. Like it's proof that even if I do something that's a little bit awry, or even if I do something that's not quite permitted by the moral code that I'm espousing, look at how much I'm suffering to do it. Like I'm doing it all for you. I'm doing it all to prove myself. And like, so even if I do take the life of a homeless guy without invoking the scales or the cane or anything, like I did it while I was like bleeding and in severe pain. It might be a thing in his head. It might be something Ammit demanded of him, or it might be a mix of the two.
Or it might be penance. Like, I think it's similar to what you're saying, right? That like, because he doesn't get judged, he is the judger, but he himself is in this world and has this code and has this vision, but knows he can never be judged. And maybe doing this great evil, you know, like he said, the difference between medicine and poison is the dosage, right? So maybe because he's exacting so much of a dose around, he's actually poisoned himself. And this is his penance for that because he cannot judge himself and therefore kill himself. And I would assume that the only killing that is allowed is one of judgment from Ammit and therefore judgment from him, you know, but he's not going to be able to do that to himself. So glass in the shoes.
Maybe it just gives him the Alec Baldwin voice from 30 Rock.
What the fuck is that about? Like, I literally have not seen Ethan Hawke since, God, what was that movie he did with Winona Ryder?
Reality Bites?
Bites?
Yes, Reality Bites. Like, literally
you
have
didn't
not
see like Before
seen
Sunrise
Ethan Hawke
or
since
any of
then.
that stuff?
Nah. And now he's old and puts glass in his fucking shoes and talks like this. I don't get it. Like, what happened to Ethan Hawke?
I also love that he wears those Uncle Cookout shoes, like those leather slip-ons.
Uncle Cookout shoes.
I'm just glad they're not Crocs.
Yeah. They are like fancy leather Crocs.
What if that was like the sponsorship for the season? Like Crocs, we can
Crocs?
hold all your glass.
God, they really
Oh
couldn't
my God,
handle
it'd be perfect. She has a fucking crocodile head. It'd be
You're
so
right.
perfect.
It's actually, yeah, that's almost a missed opportunity at this point. Yeah.
Marvel, I'm out here if you need some marketing ideas.
I know, right? Like, give us money for this. We want a finder's fee.
Yeah, can we take another break to announce our new sponsor, Crocs?
Oh my God. I just don't think I could take the money. I'm not into it.
All right. So we saw in this episode that Steven was supposed to summon the suit. At that point, we'd only seen one suit with respect to Moon Knight, as it's called in the show, the ceremonial battle armor. And instead, what Steven summons is a really dapper little ensemble with a vest and a tie and a shirt, some nice dress pants all fitted. And it actually leads to one of the best, I think, visual bits of the episode where the jackal is invisible. So you have this man in a suit, like celebrating his one punch against an enemy nobody can see. I just thought that was a very clever little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But given what we know about Steven, did that suit make sense for his character in terms of what his mind thought a suit was going to be and how he would generate that? Did it make sense? And to give a little background on this, the suit actually comes from the comics, and it's a version of Moon Knight called Mr. Knight. And from what I understand of the comics version, I haven't read the comics, but I did a little bit of background on this. Mr. Knight is kind of this stone cold underground boss, like just a guy who knows the underworld, is not to be messed with, is feared. He doesn't operate in the superhero form. He's not like supernatural Batman. He's just very much a guy on the ground, but who will kill you if you go against him. Now, I don't think that's a character we're seeing here, but just in terms of the suit that was actually generated, did it make sense for Steven's character?
Yeah, I have gone back and forth on this. I will stake my claim that it does make sense for him for this reason. I think Steven himself obviously is a schlubby dresser. We see it with the shirt and the jacket, and he's just kind of whatever. He wears the same thing almost every day, basically. He's not that. But a suit is that aspirational thing for a lot of men, and it did have a vibe of like how he would imagine like the posh rich person. You know, he even talked about the mental health retreat looking kind of posh. You know, somewhere in the back of his mind, he just had this idea of like what hoity-toity looks like. What does a suit look like? Who do I want to be? And there was something in that spoke to me about it. It was a little old-timey, a little out of fashion, but in a way that maybe suggested British refinement to me. So I thought it tracked. I don't know.
I just want to say, like, I cannot believe that all this time I've been lusting after Stephen Grant? Like, not Marc Spector, but Stephen Grant with that forearm photo that Marvel put out?
Yeah.
Like, that shit was hot. And I'm like, this is classic daddy school of sexuality where, like, the slightest thing that he does, he just exudes with, just this easy sexiness. And that was Stephen Grant.
It was.
Like, I am shocked. First of all, shocketh. I'm not shocked at all that Mark was right with his theory, but like I am shocked that my ass was lusting after Stephen Grant and not Marc Spector. That being said, like, Mark, like you, I went back and forth on this. I was like, this suit does not befit my man at all. Like, he should be in like an REI suit. Like, he's not, this man is now fashionable. He needs something super baggy. Like, does he even know what fashion is? But at the same time, I was like, this does feel a little British. Like, the three-piece suit nature of it. And yet he had kicks at the bottom, which I thought was kind of cute. So, yeah, it was... It's just, I can't even answer this because I'm still reeling from the fact that I've been lusting after Stephen fucking Grant. But I feel like also totally my brand because I love a nerd. So, but damn, that forearm is fucking sexy.
The forearm and the French poetry, I feel like you put those together and it starts to look a little more accurate, maybe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so initially my response was, this doesn't make any sense. Like, Kristine, you're exactly right. I thought, like, if he's going to think of a suit, it's going to be an off-the-rack thing that he picked up, not tailored, like a little bit too long. But then you realize it's a mystical suit of armor that can apparently take on multiple forms. And Khonshu clearly cares about appearances. Like, you don't design that battle armor except to intimidate and to inspire fear in people. So I could also see Steven and Khonshu probably having a battle as he's falling. And Steven is full on thinking of, the suit that he probably saw off the rack at the last time he went to the mall. And Khonshu saying, no, like, you do not get to be my avatar. You do not get to wear my 4,000-year-old battle suit and look like that. Goes through his head a little bit and it's like, okay, I can take that. I can do the 3-piece. I can do the very British thing. I'll give you that. And then that's how he lands.
Can we talk about the landing too? It was so funny when he fucking keeled over at the end. I was like, no superhero landing for you, sir. You need to earn that shit.
Yes. He did not get the Monica Rambeau landing. He didn't get the 3-point stance. Didn't everybody expect it? You're like, okay, we get the knee on the ground and he looks up and he starts fighting and he's just like, plop.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Black Widow hit like 3 of those fucking things before she hit the ground and still got a fucking superhero landing. Oh, God. He's like, no, I'm a baby superhero, not ready. Don't even know about that shit yet.
Well, let's talk about our last section, the big picture, the big character picture. We're going to step a little bit beyond the line by line here. Kristine, is it weird to have a bunch of non-Egyptian characters fighting over which Egyptian god will reign supreme and rule the earth and make all the decisions about justice and whatnot?
Not at all. Like, have y'all ever read Greek mythology? First of all, it's like, forget about like the humans fighting. Like, them fools, the gods were fighting all the time, right? Like, Zeus locked up his dad. Aphrodite fucked up Apollo. I think Artemis used to fuck up Aphrodite, probably because she was messing with Artemis's brother. And the shit they used to get into all the time was like, who did the humans worship more? Like, these bitches were always thirsty for drama. And like, a lot of polytheistic religions have mankind as like the original reality TV show. Like, we were built to amuse the gods. They are petty, dramatic bitches with huge egos. And then they get us all riled up and we fight each other because they are angry at their fellow god. So, like, I'm not the least bit surprised that Khonshu got banished by all the other gods, and now he's fucking up Steven and Mark's life for his own petty bullshit. Like, this is just classic mythology, Sensi gods bullshit, where they just drag us into their nonsense. Because that's what we were made to do. We're made to worship the gods, to do as they will, and to be fucking entertainment for them.
And if we're going to see the Egyptian gods employing any set of mortals in order to settle their beefs, you've got an assassin who apparently killed a bunch of archaeologists in Egypt.
Yeah.
Coupled.
Allegedly.
Thank you for stepping in, counselor, and noting that nobody's been convicted yet. And it's in England. Like, the one place I would assume that the Egyptian gods would use to fight their battles is a place that has just imperialized and stolen so much Egyptian history for their own purpose. It's like, look, if all my shit's here, if my scarab's here, if my sarcophagus is here, if all the totems of my power are here, let's fight it out here. Like, why do I need to be back in Egypt when everything we need is right here? And we know how to take advantage of these people.
I'll be fascinated to see how Egyptians, since we're in Cairo for the next episode, presumably, how they respond, though, to Arthur Harrow being like, I'm the avatar of Ammit, you guys. Right. I mean, I'm sure he'll be able to, speak, right? Because he speaks a bunch of languages with locals. But I don't know. It'll be an interesting scene. I look forward to that. Jesse, one of the other things that is so different about this show is how detached Steven and Mark's story is from MCU continuity, especially compared to anything we've seen on TV. You know, WandaVision, Hawkeye, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki. These are all tied in so deeply. I think you could argue this is the least attached to MCU continuity of any project since maybe Phase 1. How do you feel about the lack of continuity in this project?
So I was going to say the only other thing that I felt has been this detached was probably Eternals.
Oh, that's a good point.
And Eternals did not, to me, come off very well. I think a big part of that was the fact that it was just 10 characters, a whole lot of backstory. It was trying to introduce basically an entire background, plot line, etc., that they couldn't really do in a movie. That aside, this is not an Eternals podcast. We're talking about Moon Knight. I really like what Moon Knight's doing. And the reason I like it is because it's focused on a few core characters. And I don't think the central conceit of the show, which is you've got this person who doesn't know what reality is and what it isn't. I don't know that you could execute that if you had other MCU characters or other MCU plot lines that we knew were tied into the quote unquote real world to ground it. Because right now, I mean, even watching this episode, I had my doubts, is Arthur Harrow even real? Is any of this actually happening? Or is it all something that's happening in Steven's head? Is Marc Spector actually real? Or is it, again, something Stephen Grant comes up with to compensate for both who he is and what he has to do? And you couldn't have those doubts if there was a person tied into the mainline continuity to ground you and keep you real. Like, let's say that Yelena showed up. Well, we would know, okay, she's her. She's got her ties. She's real. She's grounded. He's not hallucinating her. She's not a fabrication. He's not reading anything on her unless she acts in a way that's inconsistent with her past characterization. Whereas here, we don't know anybody. Was Donna a servant of Ammit? Was she torturing him just because she knew she could? We didn't know if the date was real. We didn't know if the dreams that he thought he was having were actually occurring or if he was staying in bed the whole night. Seems like he's not, but we don't know. And none of that would have had the same effect if we had some sort of tie-in or expectation to something that we knew was quote unquote real and grounded and not in his head.
Jesse, so spot on. Fucking loved everything that you said. I think it's so funny, though, that you brought up the Eternals, because at the end of the episode, all I could think about was Cersei. In trying to find a connection to the larger MCU, I was like, oh, I wonder if they've ever met at I don't know, an Egyptian loving conference or something. Because it's in London, right? They're both into Egyptian history and all that shit. Like, she was probably around at the height of Ammit and Khonshu's power in ancient Egypt. And also Kit Harington is running around London right now. Like, are they going to meet up? So I as out of the MCU as it is, and I am loving that. And I think you are so right to be like, it needs to be in order for us to constantly wonder what is real and what's not. Because if we have something that's familiar, we understand that if it's not familiar, it's probably wrong and it's probably fake. But for some reason, I still I need some random connection or my mind just makes it. And for me, it's Cersei because they're so similar.
I'm so enjoying it, but that's funny that we all have the Eternals on our minds, because the other thing I keep thinking about is would I be more or less compelled to follow some other god after we learned that the Earth was an egg for a celestial baby and it's still sticking out of the ocean, and oh yeah, another one appeared in the sky and was talking to everybody. I can't decide if that would make people more inclined to follow someone like Ammit or less inclined, because it'd be Do you have a plan for dealing with the Celestials? Or because if you're not as a god, you're wasting my time as a follower. We need to be marshaling our energies towards dealing with the Celestial problem. But again, that would be such a boring show. And I just really am glad that they're not. We've had a lot of dealing with the snap, and I think I feel good about the snap and the blip being dealt with, and I'm ready to move on. So as an emotional thing, as a storytelling thing, I'm 100% there. But I do keep wondering about the whole Celestial baby thing.
What if that's just dealt with? Like, they'll just do a one-off what if episode. What if that's what the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special is about?
Oh my God, that's actually a really good guess. I love that theory.
That's funny. But here's the thing, like no one on Earth who's not a Celestial knows what the fuck that thing is coming out of the ocean. They're just like, what the fuck is that? You know, like, can we have a normal day or like a normal 5 minutes, please? What the fuck is that in the ocean? But I think sometimes like people find solace in their religion, like it just helps answer the unanswerable for them. And I think like if running around with Ethan Hawke makes you feel better about this random ass thing sticking out of the ocean, then like, I'm happy for you.
And I can also see so many things happen all the time. You think about somebody who is, 15 years old, 18 years old in the MCU. And in their life, they're born when Iron Man comes into being. And since that time, you've had an alien invasion and Ultron and the snap and the blip. Not to mention all the smaller things that happen. Then you've got the Celestial egg baby. And at a certain point, doesn't your brain just say, this is another thing? I'd rather deal with the thing I can interact with directly. I can directly talk to Arthur and do this thing and live in this commune and be who I am and have some control over my life. Or I can just try to deal with all this unfathomable stuff that some nuclear-powered superhero is probably going to punch or fly away or put in a portal. And we haven't even gotten to the multiverse yet.
I wonder how much therapists are paid in the MCU. Like, they got to be making bank.
Oh, my God.
Man. Talkspace is like $500 an hour.
It's like the number one stock on the market. Like Talkspace is like Facebook.
Like superhero my ass. Therapists are the superheroes of the fucking MCU.
Yeah, keeping everyone together. It's not that much different than climate change, really, in some respects, though. We think about how we have all these different things happening, all these disasters that we had not, super hurricanes and shit. And it's like, we're all like, well, that, ooh. But then we just keep going on and, shopping online, doing our thing. So opening retail stores for people to shop out online. It's just like we do our lives even in the face of these sort of increasingly catastrophic things. So I think you're probably right. It's like people just kind of like turn to religion as needed, but otherwise we're not inclined to shake things up. The inertia of our lives is very strong. Well, thank you both so much for digging into all this, for playing my random Would You Rather game, for digging into the compelling questions around Layla and Arthur and the suit. And then, of course, these questions around these Egyptian gods and their machinations with these non-Egyptian characters. And continuity as a thing that maybe we don't always need to be drowning in for every single MCU project. Jesse, if people want to talk to you more about any of this, where can they find and follow you?
They can find and follow me on Twitter at Jesse L. Taylor, Jesse.
And Kristine, what about you? If folks are excited to talk MCU or any other interesting, I don't know, what else do you want people to come talk to you about, Kristine?
Come and talk to me about LGBTQ liberation, abortion liberation, all of that great stuff. And the first Black woman Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, her confirmation vote is this week. So talk to me about all of those good things and the bad things, whatever. I'm here for whatever. So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at KippinSK, KippinSK.
All right, legendary listeners, that is our show for today. We will be back with Storycast next week and Charactercast the week after that. If you are enjoying the show, please leave us a 5-star Apple review so we can rise in those search rankings. I think a lot of people have found us on Stitcher over the last week or two, so thanks to all of you for hopping on board and enjoying the MCU and all this TV with us. It would mean a lot to us if you could leave a little review wherever you find the podcast. And if you want to talk with me some more, of course, you can find me at the Marvelous TV Club Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram. Follow me on Twitter at Mark Folletti. That's Mark with a C. And, of course, follow Latchkey at shoplatchkey.com. All right, team, let us bring the gods our finest vegetables and let them be judged.
I could do with some lentil soup, to be honest.
It did sound tasty this morning.